Howard Bond passed away at the age of 77. He served on this board for 4 years, from 1988 to 1991. And I'll ask, we're going to have a moment of silence. Before that, I'll ask if there's any comments board members like to make in remembrance of Mr. Bond.
Mr. Bond was a personal friend and neighbor of mine. You know, I'd see him out on the street. He always had petitions for politicians that I really liked. So we got along just great. I did not have the opportunity to serve with him on the board, but he was truly a class act, a gentleman, and someone I had looked up to and inspired me to, you know, hopefully do at least a fraction of the job that he did as a board member. Just a wonderful man, and I extend with my sympathies to his family in the passing of Mr. Bond way too early.
Thank you. I didn't serve with Mr. Bond either. I think I was in kindergarten when he started his service on the board, but I did get to know him through my experience in the community. We, in fact, recently sat on a panel together for a Curtis Fuller special. And I can just say that Mr. Bond was a dedicated advocate for our students. He has served in multiple capacities, and I hope folks will get a chance to read the obituaries that were published in the Enquirer and the Cincinnati Herald, highlighting some of his accomplishments. So,
Mr. Bond was a personal friend of our family, most close to my husband, and I met him during my campaign for school board, and he helped me to understand the real true role of a school board member. And I just remember the brief time that I did get to be in conversation with him, how passionate and dedicated he was to our students. And so I wish sympathy to his family as well.
thank you, Vice President Dansby. So at this time, we will have a moment of silence in honoring Howard Bond. All right. Now it's time for our committee reports. Mrs. Hoffman, as chair of the policy committee, will you please present the April 27, 2015 committee meeting report?
Sure. We had quite a lengthy meeting on April 27th. You'll see a number of the policies we discussed during that meeting are up for votes tonight. So we're excited to share them with the full board. Specifically, finalizing changes to policy 7510, the use of district facilities and property, is something as a board we've been talking about for quite a while now, including our alcohol policy. We also began a really interesting conversation about recess before lunch. This fits with our Whole Child initiative, where during the last committee of the whole meeting, we talked specifically about health and wellness of our kids. And so we're really excited to carry that conversation forward and hopefully fill the rest of the board in on some of that work there. And then we spent a great deal of our time talking about the School for the Creative and Performing Arts, the policies and procedures that were assigned to us by the full board to work on and figure out how we can move that work forward. So I submit the report as written.
Thank you. Do board members have any questions or comments from the May 6, 2015 Committee of the Whole meeting? All right. We need a voice vote to accept the committee reports as written. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? All right, at this time, we'll move on to our presentation. Tonight, we'll be discussing an update on the School for Creative and Performing Arts presented by Assistant Superintendent Gabe Lofton.
Good evening, board members.
Good evening.
Over the last year, the School for Creative and Performing Arts has undergone 4 external and internal reviews. The Art School Network, the Advanced Data Accreditation, the DeVos Institute of Arts Management at the University of Maryland, in addition to an internal audit by Chandra Brown. In all 4 reviews, there were emerging areas of opportunities for the school. They were vision, communications, fundraising, financial policy and controls, and organizational structure. The primary deliverable in all 4 reports was to make recommendations in the aforementioned areas. The reports were not meant to be long-term strategic plans, but rather an immediate diagnosis of the current state of affairs at the school and a roadmap for moving forward. What you will hear tonight are comprehensive plans for moving forward, which include adding additional positions in the areas of executive oversight, development, marketing, and accounting. The creation of a new school structure that would audition students in grade 6 to start the conservatory program in grade 7 rather than grade 4. The institution of systematic financial protocols and controls that allow for better resource allocation, and the recalibration of existing external partners that would lead to the creation of a new 501c3, which would support the development of programs, scholarships, performances, exhibitions, materials, and equipment. In short, all of this will be the collective work of CPS Central Administration, administrative leadership of the school, SCPA's LSDMC, their ILT, and external partners. From July 2014 until currently, a number of events have occurred, such as the fact-finding presentation, the ASN visit and report, the Oversight Committee report, and the 3 visits by the DeVos group. At this time, I'm going to talk a little bit about the internal auditor's report, but I can't talk in detail about it other than what they have included up here in terms of the dates and what has occurred throughout the school year as it relates to some of the things that she did some research on. Again, these are the internal auditor's communications to the LSDMC. As you can see up here, delineated are the dates that the internal auditor communicated with SCPA's local school decision-making committee as it relates to specific financial controls and protocols and the research that she concluded over the last 8 months. Again, the LSDMC Finance Committee meetings delineated are the meeting dates and the corresponding things that occurred within those meeting dates. The Oversight Committee meetings, the original purpose was to create a new 501c3. It focused on the following: providing a clearinghouse for divergent efforts, providing guidance to the LSDMC Finance Chair, and reporting on financials, programming, and other avenues of interest. It was held in conjunction with the SCPA community. Once again, those are the corresponding dates delineated below. So as stated earlier, we have identified 4 key areas that we would like to focus our presentation on this evening. They are personnel and talent recruitment, school culture, finances/partnerships, and marketing. At this time, I would ask Mr. Paul McDowell, who is our HR director, to come forward to discuss personnel and talent recruitment.
Good evening, board members, Superintendent Ronan, Treasurer Jennifer Wagner. As Dr. Lofton indicated, this will take a multi-department undertaking for this work to occur. And as Dr. Lofton mentioned, as representing human resources for the district, we wanted to share with you the recommendation regarding the senior leadership within the SCPA structure. So as you can see, and I will highlight new positions that will be added to the leadership structure for SCPA. First being the executive director, which will be a new position that is currently posted, and resumes, applications are being accepted as we speak. We also have within the structure, the leadership structure, an additional counselor that will provide services to the students of SCPA. We have an additional accountant, which will be added to assist with the finances and the collection of the finances. We all know that SCPA generates revenue, probably far greater than many of our schools, and having accounting of that is critical for the work that they do at the school. And then lastly, we will have a new position that is an external relations manager that will be new to the school structure for next school year. We share with you a timeline. I'm not going to go through every individual date and function. This timeline has been copied. There's copies out in the lobby for our guests if they would like a copy when they leave. And I'll make sure that board members have it as well. But this starts a process. As we said, there's many functions related to this when you're doing this type of work. This starts a process beginning the middle of April and going through August, and highlights key points of the hiring process, the recruitment process for these positions that I highlighted earlier that will be new to the structure at SCPA, and also positions that will be replaced at SCPA for the upcoming school year. Again, highlighting some of the critical pieces as far as the human resources and the capital, the talent that's being added to SCPA, the executive director. We will begin a principal search, a search for the artistic director, external relations, additional counselor, and accountant. And again, those are all highlighted in the timeline that we've made copies of, that was previously posted, and there's copies that folks can take with them if they so choose. I will turn the presentation back over to Dr. Lofton to discuss school structure.
So as it relates to institution and structure, we have plans to create a working committee, a subcommittee of the instructional leadership team at SCPA to begin to think about and have dialogue about shifting to a K-6, 7-12 school model. We would like to, as Mr. McDowell had already stated, we are launching a search for an executive director, a senior finance officer, and an external relations officer. And again, we have already drafted and posted an additional guidance counselor for the 15-16 school year.
Well, Dr. Lofton, I'll pick up here. As you know, as you stated, our internal auditor, Shonda Brown, isn't here tonight, or the LSDMC finance chair. They're not available, so I'll ask our treasurer, Jen Wagner, if she could speak to any of the items under the finance piece.
So certainly, back in March, I attended the Finance Committee subcommittee meeting and agreed to meet with them on a monthly basis. So I've been meeting with internal auditor and the Finance Committee chair to start resolving some issues that they're having. We've developed a training program for the school staff on the proper ways to spend the money under our policies. So we're just moving forward to help solve these problems. The last thing I can say is that I attended the initial meeting of the planning of the new 501c3.
Excellent.
I can interrupt for just a second. I see some folks coming in and standing. There are a few chairs. There's some up front here and in the audience. If you'd like to find a seat, just it might be good to clear the exit ways. Mr. Ruin, is that a good idea? Okay, thank you. Please continue. Maybe raise your hand if you're next to an empty seat for those that are coming in. There's some in the back and on this side. Yeah, there's also chairs at the lower level. Thank you.
So I'm going to ask Janet Walsh, our Director of Public Affairs, to come forward and talk about one of those areas of focus for us, which is that of
Let's maybe
marketing.
pause a second while folks get settled, sorry. Sorry for the interruption.
Ms. Walsh?
Thank you.
As many of the internal and external reviews of SCPA has pointed out, and as I believe all the current students and parents and staff understand, SCPA is a special place, and it needs special marketing. It really is akin to one of the major arts organizations in our city, and needs to be staffed that way in terms of added support for marketing beyond what the school currently is able to support, and frankly, the district is able to support on its behalf. So the recommendations are to add an external relations manager who would focus on marketing, on getting, on coordinating all of the resources of SCPA to make it a good news machine, and also to focus on fundraising and developing partnerships within the community with the existing arts organizations. So major steps along that pathway include creating a staff marketing committee, getting those creative and promotional juices flowing and tapping them and coordinating them, launching an institutional marketing campaign, which would be connecting with the major arts organizations in our community, and developing a style guide and teacher marketing toolkit so that the communications have a consistent look and feel. The Public Affairs Department has begun working with SCPA staff on a new website. It has launched. It features responsive design, which means it's compatible with smartphones and other smart devices and reads well. This is a look at it. We'll continue to work to populate it with all this new great content that's going to be generated. As our board member said in a recent communication to SCPA parents, families, and other stakeholders, we all have the same interest here in the end, and that is to make sure that this incredible talent, artistically and academically at SCPA, shines to its fullest. I believe that concludes the presentation this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Walsh. Are there questions or comments from board members? Okay. Well, we do appreciate the administration pulling this together, and not only was it a presentation to us as the board, but we also felt it was important to present to the community what the vision is for SCPA moving forward. So at this time, we'll move on to section D in our agenda, announcements, kudos, and retirements. First off, does anyone have any kudos?
Thank you very much. Proud to announce the kudos and a number of folks receiving these kudos. The following 2015 Dr. Lawrence C. Hawkins Educator of the Year Award finalists are Cheryl Abney Green from Evanston Academy, Emily Berry Renair from Gamble Montessori High School, Lee Black, Dater High School, Rosa Brinkman, Silverton Paideia Academy, Carmi Chambers from Roberts Academy, Mary Frances Gibson from Clark Montessori High School, Audrey Gover maybe, Silverton Paideia Academy, Johanka Hart Tompkins, Walnut Hills High School, Craig Hoover, Withrow University High School, Angela Houston, Withrow University High School, Tracy Jennings, Mount Washington School, Jeffrey Lazar, Walnut Hills High School, Catherine Lienhart from, Winton Hills Academy, Rosalind Robinson from J.P. Parker School, Steve Sipple, Dater High School, Christopher Sorrentino from Hughes STEM High School, Krista Taylor from Gamble Montessori High School, Harry Vall from Roselawn Condon School. The award was established by the Western and Southern Group in 2007 and honors one educator each year in Cincinnati Public Schools who has elevated the educational process in his or her personal commitment to the district and exceptional dedication with a focus on outstanding results. The winner will receive a personal check for $10,000. The finalists for 15 were chosen from nominations submitted by CPS teachers and administrators. The winner will be announced tomorrow evening on May 12th, and we congratulate each and every one of these nominees and look forward to honoring the winner at a later date. Thank you.
Sounds good. Well, to continue with our kudos, we would like to congratulate Wesley Wolf, Walnut Hills High School 9th grader, for qualifying for the Intel International Science and Engineering Fair. Wesley created one of 7 projects considered to be the best Ohio high school student research project at the recent Buckeye Science and Engineering Fair. The event gave students from almost half of Ohio, 40 counties, an opportunity to qualify for the Intel ISEF, one of the most prestigious pre-college science competitions in the world. Wesley will join over 1,700 high school students from more than 70 countries in Pittsburgh next month to compete for over $5 million in scholarship and prizes. So best of luck to Wesley.
Ms. Bates, will you please present the retirements?
Yes, be happy to. From our certificated personnel, Stephanie L. Armsbury, Sheila F. Anderson, Melanie L. Beiersdorfer, Beth Ellen Overmeyer Fuel, Mary Roberto Russo, Hava Surov, Paula J. West. From our civil service personnel, Elizabeth Anderson, Tammy Butts, Kathleen Fox, Sheila Hess, Pharaoh Jones, Cheryl Richardson, Rebecca Simmons, and Kenneth Woods. We wish them well during their retirement and thank them for their service to our students.
Thank you, Ms. Bates, for acknowledging them. We are now at the item of our agenda for hearing the public. Each speaker has 2 minutes to speak tonight due to the high volume of speakers. Mrs. Wagner, our treasurer and CFO, will be the timekeeper. If it's your turn to speak, when the buzzer goes off, please know that your time is up. It's important to note that the board will refrain from discussing any personnel items. When your name is called, please come to the podium to speak. Our first speaker is Julie Tyra. Ms. Tyra will be followed by Adonia Stevens, then Nicole Stevens.
Hi. Members of the board, my name is Julie Tyra. I have 3 children at Sands Montessori. I was here to speak at the February 23rd board meeting about a violent incident that happened in my daughter's classroom. It has happened again. The same boy has attacked my daughter. The principal called me late afternoon on Monday, April 27th, with a teacher in her office. They wouldn't provide any information if this same boy was returning to the classroom. I requested multiple times the classroom incident report from February 9th, and I don't have it. 2 weeks after this second event, I walked my daughter into the classroom, and the teacher confirmed, yes, a classroom incident report was filled out, yet I do not have it. I've learned at least 2 other students have been attacked by the same boy. I've learned that the teachers once wore plastic wrist guards to protect themselves from this same boy. All I want to know is, I want the incident report. That's my right. I've emailed, I've called, I've done everything. The negligence continues, the violence continues at Sands, and it's just dismissed. I know school ends in 2.5 weeks, but I have 3 children at Sands. I've been there for 5 years. And the more I learn, the more I'm afraid. So I'm asking for your help, and thanks for letting me speak.
Thank you, Ms. Tyra. Ms. Ronan, is there someone from the administration that can address her concern tonight?
I believe it's Mrs. Mitchell or Mrs. Dillon.
It looks like Ms. Dillon is getting up, so she'll meet you at the west wing of the auditorium. Next, we have Adonia Stevens, followed by Nicole Stevens, followed by Carolyn Alexander. Welcome.
Hi, I'm a student at SCPA, and I believe that reassigning Dr. Rudnick and Mr. Brokamp is not what's best for SCPA. Dr. Rudnick does an absolutely fantastic job of maintaining a high standard of excellence in the arts. I couldn't imagine a person able to replace him. Mr. Brokamp also does a great job in maintaining safety in and outside of the building. He's had assemblies to discourage bullying, drinking, and solve various problems in school. He hosts rewards parties for high academic achievers and exposes us to amazing experiences such as the Courage Retreat that encouraged the 7th and 8th grade students to be themselves and treat others with respect. Overall, Dr. Rudnick and Mr. Brokamp have gone above and beyond to make this school the best. Losing these 2 important parts of SCPA is losing our identity.
Our next speaker is Nicole Stevens, followed by Carolyn Alexander, followed by Holly Bryans-Ragusa.
Good evening. Thank you for seeing us tonight. I must say that was my daughter, and I am a very passionate, proud mother, and I feel like it has been such a blessing for her to go to SCPA because of the world-class artistic experience that she has, and that is 95, I would say 95% due to the expertise of Dr. Rudnick to just pull all of this together. Mr. Brokamp as well has been an excellent communicator to our parents on all issues across the board, from the arts to the programs to scheduling to making sure we are aware of things such as College Credit Plus and exactly how to sign up, things that other schools and other principals may not be doing. And I just wrote short bullet points of why it's so important to me as a parent of a very gifted child to continue with the current structure with Dr. Rudnick and Brokamp. There are 678 petitions signed, over 300 comments left on why Dr. Rudnick should stay. His experience and track record, he brings to these students once-in-a-lifetime opportunities, strong parent relationships respected by artists in the United States and around the world, tremendous education and career guidance, gives 210% every day. He's there till 8, 9 o'clock every night. I don't think you're going to find anybody else who's even passionate enough to do that. I don't know how he keeps going. He's reliable, extremely professional, and he's a promoter of excellence. So I think board, if you are truly concerned with the students of SCPA and taking the current world-class artistic experience to another level with improved marketing, it would be in your best interest to include Dr. Isidore Rudnick and Steve Brokamp in the process of finding your external relations manager and your executive director, improving your website,
Ms.
improving
Stevens,
the mission and
Ms.
vision.
Stevens, thank you. Out of respect for other
Thank you.
speakers.
Thank you very much.
Can I say what this is really quick? Can I say what this is? No? Okay.
Thank you. Please remember to respect the 2-minute limit. Next is Ms. Carolyn Alexander, followed by Holly Bryans Ragusa, followed by Mike Nally. Welcome.
Good evening, board members. Our motto at SCPA is to find your voice, and we'd like to share ours tonight.
Our next speaker is Holly Bryans Ragusa, followed by Mike Nally, followed by Keith and Kylie DeGreen.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. President, respected members of the board, we parents who initiated the We Are SCPA campaign to educate, unite, and recover this school are encouraged by the community's support here tonight. We speak for ourselves as there are many gathered who speak with their own minds. Blame for our current situation, whether in lack of communication, transparency, leadership, advocacy, lack of oversight, or involvement, is certainly a shared shame. However, these 2 minutes won't be spent dwelling in the past. Although there is disagreement in our community on how best to move forward, we share the goal of enabling our students' best education. In life, change is the only constant. Our lead in all matters, these children will follow. Much information has been released, and the DeVos report in particular stands out. It recognizes the unique School for Creative and Performing Arts for what it truly is and provides a clear path forward. Page 4 states, when considering SCPA, one cannot benchmark it against other schools in the CPS environment. One must look to other institutions of a similar mandate and the national environment for guidance on the capacities required to manage a world-class art school. Initiating and funding the extensive and necessary process of evaluation is to be commended. As a board, you've demonstrated your unanimous faith in its findings by using it as a guide for recent decisions in regards to this school, however difficult they may be for us to stomach. The report shows the excellence of our arts education, highlighting our experiential learning tailored by our unique special arts needs children. This report gets our students and support they require. We seek to work in conjunction with the specific recommendations made by a report that has held such sway with our Board of Education. Therefore, we challenge the CPS Board of Education to immediately implement and fully fund all recommendations made by the DeVos Group in their entirety to ensure that SCPA gains the strength and stability, to soar to the heights we all believe it can. We are SCPA. Thank you.
Speaker is Mike Nally, followed by Keith and Kylie DeGreen, followed by Dave Jackson.
Good evening. My name is Mike Nally. My wife and Angela have 2 sons at SCPA. We are SCPA, and so are you. This board makes decisions that affect our students, whether everyone likes it or not. So I'd rather find a way to work with you than fight against you. The announcements and official comments concerning leadership changes at SCPA stunned and dismayed the students, parents, staff, alumni, and community. Our students are taught find your voice. As you just heard, they brought themselves together and made their voices heard. And you noticed, slowly, but you noticed. This board didn't respond until the end of the week, but your letter of May 8th did point out that your goal is, as we saw, to make sure that SCPA students shine, and so is mine. The SCPA family welcomes educators, students, parents, community, and alumni. For without any of these voices, we are not SCPA. But make no mistake, we are SCPA. Families pull together in times of crisis, especially when the children are threatened. This family needs solutions. This board needs to fund and implement the full slate of DeVos recommendations. SCPA needs experience and continuity in school leadership. Students and staff need to succeed from the first day of school this August forward. Your presentation suggests that this is important to the board as well. We're watching. We need a roadmap to sustainable funding for the 15-16 school year and beyond. This is critical to finance the great academics and art our students create. We're waiting. Because SCPA is a K-12 school, students and parents are here longer than most of the members of this board have been in office. Parents, alumni, and supporters of SCPA know how to vote. So while our students' success depends on you, never forget that your success depends on us. If CPS would like to keep or regain the trust and support of the SCPA family and the community, you need to keep involving us in your decisions, because we are SCPA, and so are you.
Thank you, Mr. Nally. Next is Keith and Kylie DeGreen, followed by Dave Jackson, followed by Francis Hoffner. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are Keith and Kylie DeGreen, parents of 3 SCPA students, residents of the city of Cincinnati, and active registered voters.
Regardless of who has the position of artistic director starting next year, we would please ask that they have the following characteristics.
The artistic director needs to be an artist. Whether creative or performing, we want somebody who's not just an administrator, but that can bring the perspective of an artist to the position.
The artistic director needs to be a passionate advocate for the students. They need to be the type of person that knows the kids by name and that will fiercely champion the students' individual aspirations, whether it's on the stage, behind the scenes, in the orchestra pit, or with their pencil or their paintbrush.
The artistic director needs to be committed to continuing to bring in outside artists and alumni for master classes and workshops, guest directors, writers, artists. Guest directors, writers, artists, teachers, conductors, all from outside the school, to enrich the kids, yes, but also as a stepping stone to build contacts for the students' future careers.
The artistic director needs to know how to build relationships with the outside organizations. Starting this year, CCM, one of the finest arts conservatories in the country, announced it was going to offer a full ride scholarship to one SCPA student each year. In the light of recent events, that scholarship is in jeopardy, and the new artistic director needs to be able to restore and nurture that relationship.
The artistic director needs to champion outside opportunities. Groups of SCPA students have traveled the globe, creating, writing, performing, training, and competing with arts groups all over the world. These things happen because of the tireless work of an effective artistic director.
Lastly, the artistic director needs to fight to keep and grow performance opportunities for students. That means fully funded productions with student opportunities, not just for the performers and the orchestra, but for all involved with putting on a show. The productions at SCPA have been world-class, and anything less would be doing a disservice to the kids, the community, and our proud 40-year tradition.
In closing, the role of the artistic director at SCPA is perhaps the most important role to be filled in the next coming months. We have been blessed with an exceptional artistic director for the past 10 years. We implore you, find somebody like Dr. Isidore Rudnick.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Dave Jackson, followed by Francis Hoffner, followed by Andy Dobson.
Hello, my name is Dave Jackson.
Welcome.
I'm the father of a junior at SCPA. I'm also the executive director of a local high school in Cincinnati. I have over 40 years of global business experience that I bring to these tasks. I've read the executive summary of the DeVos report. In my opinion, some of the recommendations of the DeVos report may benefit SCPA, some would not. But what is troubling to me is the timing of the implementation of the report and the manner in which it is being conducted. Specifically, the search for a new executive director has already been publicly announced and is ongoing. This could take some time. Meanwhile, the decision to reassign the principal and the artistic director within CPS has also been made public. Despite the beautiful handout that was given to us tonight, things in business and in schools do not always go as planned, as I'm sure you're aware. The concern I have is the fear of SCPA falling into a leadership vacuum, a sort of limbo, if you will, where no one or very little actual decision-making will occur. The reason the newly appointed executive director will be looking for guidance, and there will be no one in a position of leadership at SCPA to bridge that transition. This would be to the detriment of our faculty, staff, and clearly our student body. Likewise, absent existing leadership, the new executive director will be hiring a new principal and artistic director. With all new leadership, a natural period of acclimation and getting settled in will occur, once again allowing for very little progress of the institution until that is completed. Once again, a vacuum or a void for our students. I ask you to consider the timing of the implementation of the recommendations of the DeVos report. I encourage you to think outside the box. There are many different ways this could occur, such as staging a transition over a longer period of time, but you need to make sure there is someone at the helm in a position of leadership with accountability at all times.
Thank you,
Making
Mr.
wise
Jackson.
decisions as it relates to this transition will ultimately pave the way for SCPA to achieve the level of greatness it seeks.
Our next speaker is Francis Hoffner, followed by Andy Dobson, followed by Valerie Steinhaus.
My name's Francis Huffman. I paint houses. For 30 years, I managed small and large creative teams and feel I know something about that management. The first thing you have to understand, it's very difficult to manage creative people. You cannot put anybody in that position. It's one of the reasons I paint houses these days. But we have in Dr. Rudnick somebody who can do that, somebody who knows the sensitivities, the passions of students and teachers, and knows how to work with them and parents. So my biggest complaint or worry, I think, is also in terms of management is you're bringing in upper level management and you're eliminating middle management, and that just seems insane to me. When you have people who can help the executive director move on for a year. Keep them for a year, and at the end of the year, let him make the decision, because I feel I'm not the only person who feels that the decision you made to relieve them is tainted by the fact that the DeVos report said that you were equally responsible for what is happening at that school. As a young man, I was somewhat stubborn, and I hope pride and stubbornness doesn't keep you from rethinking this. My father took me aside one time and said to me, "Son, if the whole world thinks you're wrong, sit down and think about it, kid." So, the vast majority of the parents, students,
Thank you, Mr.
teachers,
Huffman.
etc., think you're wrong.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Andy Dobson, followed by Valerie Steinhaus, followed by Kate Reinert.
Thank you, members of the board. I'm holding in my hand a copy of the SCPA hiring timeline, which was provided for us and was also presented earlier. It's very well thought out, very nicely put together. However, I'm at a loss as to how I am to trust this process, given the unilateral decision-making that has been going on. That seems to be entirely without merit, given that there is no support for it in writing. How are we to trust the process that will select a new executive director and a new artistic director and a new principal, especially considering the fact that SCPA already enjoys the benefits of an outstanding principal and an outstanding artistic director? I don't understand how I'm to go to my daughter, who's a freshman at SCPA, and tell her that the board knows what it's doing. How we're supposed to tell these children and these parents behind me that you've got this. How are we supposed to do that? And again, just to reiterate, there's going to be an accountability here. This board can't just make these decisions unilaterally. And there's going to be accountability. Again, that's all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Dobson. Our next speaker is Valerie Steinhaus, followed by Kate Reinert, followed by Dwayne Davis.
Hi, my name is Valerie Steinhaus, and I have 6 children, 5 in Cincinnati Public, 4 at the School for Creative and Performing Arts. I have a 12th grader, a 9th grader, a 7th grader, and a 3rd grader, so I've pretty much got every stage of SCPA right now. And I've had a child there for the last 9 years, and I should have one the next 9 years, but the way I feel right now is I cannot trust the Board of Education for Cincinnati Public Schools. I've been to several of the community meetings where I was told that we would have a financial plan in act already. I was told that Dr. Rudnick and Mr. Brokamp were not going to, their positions were not in jeopardy. And then I find out on May 1st, they're gone. I feel like you guys have lied to us, and now we don't trust you. I believe that one of the reasons that my 7th grader is even at SCPA is because Dr. Rudnick went above and beyond, called me during spring break, heard that my daughter was leaving, sat us down during spring break and talked to us about her gift and her ability. He's also done that with all my children. Talked to them, encouraged them, helped them set goals, let them understand what their abilities were, that they could get a good education at SCPA and go into an arts career. I feel by removing him and Dr. Brokamp, you're taking away all the stability at SCPA. I feel my daughters feel that, I feel that, the community feels that if you take that away from us, we don't know where the school can go. I also want to speak about the stability of moving the auditions to 7th grade. We're already overcrowded because we leave students there without a major because of sibling priority. That's destroying the school. But if you wait till 7th grade, you're waiting too late. A lot of them, in order to get a career in that, have to be very focused from 4th grade on, and sometimes 4th grade can be even too late. And Dr. Rudnick is the one that has informed us of that. He's educated me and others on what it takes to have a career like that, and taking them away would destroy the school.
Thank you, Ms. Steinhaus. Our next speaker is Kate Reinert, followed by Dwayne Davis, followed by Vanessa Scochera.
Superintendent Ronan and members of the board, I started with SCPA as a parent and volunteer in 1986, served as chair of the LSDMC, president of the Friends, mother of 3 alums, and still am involved as a volunteer and substitute teacher. I am very aware of issues at the school and strongly feel there need to be changes, but also feel this process by the Oversight Committee has been incredibly flawed. It has been pushed by several people with personal vendettas rather than passion for the arts, the school, and the students. It has been run by an internal auditor who was illegally hired and does not meet job qualifications. The leadership, starting with Stan Flowers as the school became K through 12, saw the need for additional administrative support, asked for it, and didn't receive it. Izzy Rudnick, whose heart has always been with the students, has needed support and direction, impossible with a justifiably overwhelmed principal. The school asked for equal treatment over and over to receive what all other schools had. We were denied. The biggest failure in all this has been your refusal for years to supply needed help after many requests and pleas. But still, SCPA has been growing and improving. Incredible concerts and class performances, the best musical in many years, awards, and so much more. Please do not stop this positive momentum. Who will speak to the history and spirit that makes the school unique? When you wipe a slate clean, who is left that knows what and how to write on it? How can you expect support staff, faculty, and top students to remain through major uncertainty? Last, I want to speak for the seniors. However flawed I find this process to be, I find it abhorrent that there was no consideration given to the class of 2015 when deciding the timing of this announcement. Their years of work and success, culminating in their graduation,
Thank you, Ms. Reinert.
will now be colored by this insensitivity. Thank you.
Scochera, followed by Mrs. Christy Moore.
Hi, Dwayne Davis. I'm a parent of a child in 7th and 6th grade. Thank you all for your presence. And I do appreciate, for sure, there's a tremendous amount of hard work that goes into your jobs and everything that goes on here. It has to be said. That being said, and all that's up there is very positive, and that's great. I think the timing, as some other people have pointed out, where's it been? The school's new, we went through one principal, now we're here. This all would have been great some time ago. In terms of communication, yeah, the chart, what's missing on here is the release of the information and where we are today. That almost, self-evident. Also, I'm not sure we're reading the same reports and how it gets interpreted to let those 2 positions be reassigned. So let's say, let's just say that we take 4 committees and review this board over a year, and we say today, the top 2 positions we're going to get rid of, we're going to reassign, or P&G, or the United States of America. Let's just think about the impact that has. A strategy for better having communicated that is, Dr. Loftus said, communication and opportunities. It's pretty obvious. Now, you all don't need my permission, but you have the authority and the power to reconsider some of your decisions, for sure. So, I'm not sure if you're catching the drift here, but, I'm big enough person to say I made a mistake and I was wrong, and I can make amends for my mistake and try to do better. So I would really ask you all, listen to the things that are being said, look at the 1,000, online votes and the petitions that are signed. Listen, how many people are at the school, and take that as a percentage of the things and the people that you've written. It's a pretty large percentage. My mother and father-in-law are here, my wife, my 2 children, my 2 parents are here. They're not here. We've been to every performance of our kids and many others. It's pretty impactful. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Our next speaker is Vanessa Scochera, followed by Mrs. Christy Moore, followed by Sarah Baker, who will be our final speaker.
Good evening. I'm Vanessa Scochera. I'm a mother of a 5th grader in a CPA. She attends the Visual Art Funds 3 for Gifted. I just want to say, I don't want to add anything more about Mr. Brokamp and Dr. Rudnick. I think you got the idea, but I need to answer the question of my daughter, why they're sending away Dr. Rudnick and Mr. Brokamp. That's what I need to do. Besides that, I have some concerns because I don't understand how this decision was made, because on the minutes of the committee as a whole of March 23rd, the following were presented as next steps: reevaluate the SCPA funding structure. And has this been done? We don't know. Draft post identify additional guidance counselor for school year. Has this been posted yet? I don't know. The second point was draft post identify suitable executive leadership for additional positions. I'm Italian, but I think I understand English. It says additional. And it didn't say anywhere in this piece of paper that I have that we would replace Dr. Rudnick and Mr. Brokamp. So, and I have many other questions. There is, the administration has been asked to implement who will oversee, implement the plan, and then many other questions about the plan, but I don't see the plan. I'm like, I don't even understand how the administration, which I understand it's the superintendent, I guess, will execute all these tasks when there is no plan. Thank you, and hope you are going to reconsider. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Mrs. Christy Moore, and our final speaker will be Sarah Baker.
Hi, good evening. My name is Christy Moore, and I am a parent of a junior at SCPA. I would just wanted to know how many of the school board actually has ever been to a performance at the school? And I totally agree with all the sentiments that have been put forward tonight as far as proposals and as far as the defense of Mr. Brokamp and Dr. Rudnick. And I don't know if I'm alone, but I feel that I'm calling for and believe strongly that this school board should issue a public apology. Should issue a public apology through all the media sources of newspaper and the TV cameras, which are actually here tonight and have been at this school for several days as well. I also feel that this should be regarding the dismissal, relocation, and actually public humiliation of our principal and artistic director. And this apology should not only be to them particularly, but also to the staff, the teachers, the parents, the students, and alumni of our community, of this school. And I'd just like to say we've all been affected and very saddened by your decisions, and it was my hope and prayer that you would reconsider some of your decisions in the light of all the sentiments and all that has been put forth tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Moore. Our final speaker is Ms. Sarah Baker.
Good evening, members of the board and Superintendent Ronan. I'm a little nervous. First off, thank you for your time. As the last speaker, this was not my expectation, so I don't want to say that I'm speaking for the masses. I am telling you a heartfelt statement for myself. I am a parent of 2 SCPA students, grade 12, a senior graduating just in a week or so, and grade 8. I was experiencing a bit of deja vu writing my address to you all because I spoke to many of you at the beginning of the last school year regarding the academic rigor and AP class schedule at SCPA. So my son, a junior at the time, was thrilled to be taking 3 AP classes. Yet some scheduling issues were overlapping classes, forcing students to drop their APs. I don't need to rehash the details of the turbulent beginning of that school year just a year ago, but simply point out that the solutions you helped provide once you were aware of the situation. It took a few weeks, maybe even a month, to get a working schedule for the entire 1,500 plus students in that building. It was a bit too long in my estimation, and I can safely assume in yours as well. My wish is for every SCPA student who wants to be able to marry academics and arts like this. But we need a strong foundation and leaders who understand the school's strengths, challenges, and opportunities to make this happen. I'm speaking tonight because I do not want to wait until the next school year starts to address many issues I feel are being glazed over right now. You've heard from many other parents tonight regarding our request for SCPA, and mine is that you implement the full DeVos recommendations. I'm here to highlight why this request must be in full effect before the beginning of next year. I see your detailed hiring timeline of the ED, the new principal, new artistic director, and externals relations manager. But there isn't a mention of the senior financial officer, simply an accountant, and also not of the grant writer. These 2 positions are crucial to bringing the school to where it needs to go and critical to ensure we have success.
Thank you, Ms. Baker.
Thank you.
Well, we do appreciate you all coming out tonight and engaging in this public meeting. We'll now move on to our resolutions. Ms. Hoffman, will you please present the resolution for board consideration?
Yes, I present a resolution amending Board Policy 6152, student fees, fines, and charges, and I submit it as written.
Second.
Thank you. It looks to me like there's just one revision to this policy, pretty simple. Would you mind explaining?
Sure. Yep. So with the My Tomorrow initiative and moving to the one-to-one devices, the Finance Committee came to us with the recommendation to include technology in this policy. So that if there's any need to replace anything along with the student mobile device, it's part of our actual policy.
Thank you. Any further discussion or comments? Mrs. Wagner, please call the roll.
Mrs. Bates?
Aye.
Ms. Bolton?
Aye.
Mrs. Copeland Dansby?
Aye.
Mrs. Hoffman?
Aye.
Mr. Manera?
Aye.
Mr. Nelms?
Yes.
President Coons?
Aye. Mr. Nelms, will you please present your resolution for board consideration?
Gladly, I have a resolution amending Board Policy 7510, use of district facilities and property, and I present as written.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion or comments?
I have a couple questions.
Ms. Dansby?
In your policy committee minutes dated from your April 27th meeting, you listed on page 2 numbers 1 through 12. Number 1 says the event holder is responsible for obtaining the required permit for alcohol, only beer and wine may be served. I don't see that in the resolution that's going forth, and I wondered about that.
Yeah, I had emailed our legal counsel to make that update, so we would need to amend what's in front of us to include the wording in in letter H, number 1, only beer and wine served.
On number 3, in the resolution, it states the event must be held outside regular school hours during the school year, which is Friday evening through Sunday evening. Does that mean that no events can be held on any weekday? Only on a weekend?
No event with the use of alcohol, meaning
During a week, during a regular
During the
school
week.
week,
We wanted-
only on a weekend?
Yes, because we wanted to provide time for the school to be able to get themselves back together and cleaned up in time for our school events.
And then, does that also mean that no events could be held, August or
sorry.
June 1 through the end of August?
I'm sorry, that's a very good question. No, to be clear, what we're saying is during the school year, they would have to be Friday evening to Sunday evening. When the school's not in session, they could be any day of the week.
Then on number 2, the event must be held inside of the building. I know that some of our buildings have very nice outdoor areas, like we have a rooftop garden at Rothenberg. We have a new terrace area at Walnut Hills High School. So are you saying in this resolution that the events can only be held inside of a building and no outside opportunity at all?
Yeah, well, I think what we intended to do was make sure that even if there's an event that has special extensions related to being indoors, that those special extensions would be allowed.
Okay, because the resolution doesn't say that. And then my other question.
So to be clear, SCPA had an event that was held outside, like Washington Park, anybody could access. Outside on a football field, any public member could access. So we're trying to contain it to inside so that we can make sure that there's much more control, thank you, over where alcohol could be served.
I just, the way it's written, the event must be held inside of the building. I don't know if there's any opportunity for revision to talk about the extensions in our buildings.
I could add that besides the initial or the first friendly amendment proposal, I think the word maybe that would be helpful would be confined space. And when you refer the rooftop garden, it's a confined space where we can control the access, as Member Hoffman, Chairman Hoffman said earlier about wide open space is another issue. So maybe there's some semantics that we can use there regarding confined and control access.
Yeah, I just would suggest the clarification.
I think that starts to make some sense, and rather than necessarily say we can leave open for exceptions. But maybe there's some verbiage regarding confined space and limited access.
Sure. Then number 9 states that alcohol availability cannot be advertised in conjunction with the event. I know that there was one event that just passed, in particular at SCPA, where it was a fundraiser, and I believe the invitations talked about wine being served, and it was intended as a draw to draw a particular crowd to support financially. And I'm wondering if number 9 is meaning that no one can print that on any material.
That's what we mean. Yes. So we don't want CPS associated with will serve you wine on printed material.
Okay. So then I guess my next question is, given the brief conversation that we've just had now, will your policy committee, Chairman Hoffman, be able to go back and make the changes to number 1 in verbiage, where you're going to add what you agreed on in your policy committee meeting, do some work on number 2, where you're talking about extensions of our buildings, on number 3 being more clear about when these events can actually be held, and then number 9 you've already explained.
I think number 3, do we need to rearrange the wording there? Events will be held outside regular school hours during the school year.
Well, I think you just said that.
That's what we actually mean.
Okay, so again, just so that I'm clear, there are no events able to be held when school is dismissed for students.
The event must be held outside regular school hours during the school year. So we don't say anything during the summer.
Okay,
so
I just want to be clear. It's just probably the way that I'm reading it. So I guess
but number 2 we could revise.
Right. So then will you go back for numbers 1 and
I'm wondering if we could possibly,
Revise it
on the floor right now, probably with those friendly amendments and corrections and better semantics, if you will. I think we could do that from the floor if the motion makers and seconders are willing to have friendly amendments.
Who seconded? I forget.
I did.
Okay. So I would take it you're
I'm-
implying that you're willing
I'm
to.
implying, yeah.
Okay, Mr. Nelms?
I just think it would be great to be able to do it from the floor. It's consumed a great deal of time, and I think all these are really good suggestions that, which is why we bring it to the floor, to get an even broader exposure.
Certainly. So I think that's a good idea to discuss on the floor. Can we just make sure we go through each of the
Please.
mentioned numbers? And we're in section H. And I guess let's start, we'll go back down through the line. So number one.
Number one, in the policy, it mentions only beer or wine can be served. And then number one in the resolution does not say that. And I guess just as a member or person, I'm wondering why the restriction only to beer or wine. Alcohol is alcohol, in my mind.
Okay. Policy committee, anyone else want to speak to it? I think we had decided that, yeah, to limit it to beer and wine instead of like hard
I guess I'm
alcohol
just
being able to
wondering
be
why.
served.
Well, I guess the semantics around that was just trying to be specific. But alcohol can be all-encompassing, but if you want us to be more specific, or we just use alcohol and assume that everyone understands it.
Well, I guess the thing
Beer,
is two
wine.
issues. Number one, the minutes don't line up with the resolution, and I think you said you asked someone to
we
include it,
asked-
so that would be the discussion on the floor
That
right now and the
correction.
friendly amendment. But then my more involved question, I think, is why the limitation to only beer or wine? Alcohol is alcohol. I don't understand. I really don't understand.
I don't know what was discussed in policy. I like the rationale, just thinking outside that it's much easier to carry in and out wine and beer. I don't know if that was your rationale, but if we're having this open discussion, I would say I like it the way it is. It's limiting, it's identifying, it makes it easy to transport. It's easy to identify containers that are brought into our schools, so custodians, there are some liquor bottles out there that do not look like liquor bottles. And so for the purpose of the discussion, I would say that I appreciate and support beer and wine for those reasons, but I'm free to continue the dialogue if that's what we're going to continue to do.
Well, then my concern would be then to number 6, where we're using approved vendors, and I don't think any of our custodians or staff would be carrying in alcohol. It would be a vendor.
Right, it would be the vendors, and I think to get to the point, some of the conversation that we had was so we're trying to find a middle ground, right, between where we are now, where we're kind of open to anything and everything, and saying no alcohol whatsoever. So how do we still welcome people into our buildings, like the opera, who wants to be able to come in, who their folks want a glass of wine at intermission, or those kind of folks who might want to hold a reception in our buildings. They're community resource centers. We want to welcome those organizations. We don't want our buildings to be party central, right? And so we don't want to be serving hard alcohol, mixed drinks, that kind of stuff. But if you want to be in our building, your organization feels like part of going to the opera, like you were saying, is having your glass of wine. We wanted to find that middle ground. And so we thought, okay, why don't we let it open it up? Then usually, as you know, if you're having a wedding or you're working with a vendor, the question is it open bar altogether, or are you only serving beer and wine? And so we thought, we're trying to find this middle ground. As you know, we've been working as a board for months now to get everybody's thoughts, and this pendulum kind of swing from one end or all the way to the other, that let's settle in the middle on just beer and wine.
So to be clear, the agreed upon change for number 1 is contiguous with the minutes, which would be beer and wine only. And now the discussion is why not others, and just wondering.
Or none, I don't know, I just still don't understand that. Then the other question was number 2, the event must be held inside of the building, but then you say, no, you can use extensions of the building, so.
And I would, I know that our president is a good wordsmith on that, but I think the thing to emphasize there is, rather than inside, outside, I think it's confined area with controllable access. And I think that would speak to it, especially from the standpoint of the garden roof at Rothenberg is a classic example. I'm not familiar with some of the other areas.
Right,
but,
and
but
those
I
are
do
the only
think that's
examples
it.
that I
I think
because
that still opens us up a little. I think
Yes.
maybe like some controlled contiguous space, right? Because
Yes.
I don't necessarily know what a controlled access, I think we could, that
Right.
could be opened up to a lot of
Right,
interpretation.
I agree.
I think
If you're
that's
saying
good.
rooftop garden, that's a controlled contiguous space.
So maybe it's just the wording.
It
or
is.
That when, I just think that when we're voting on something, we need to be clear about what we're
Sure.
voting on. And I'm not clear, I'm not able to support her because the things aren't clear. So that was number 2.
Okay, so the suggestion for the change in words is confined, contiguous?
Well, I think the event must be held inside of a building or in a confined contiguous space, right?
Yes. I mean, that makes sense.
So I just want to make sure we understand what that means. Confined, meaning there are barriers of some sort?
Right,
and
like I don't understand.
So you're at the Walnut Hills Courtyard.
Right.
That's a confined contiguous space, right? It's in between all the other buildings. There's no other way to
It's
get in.
completely open.
Yeah,
It's completely
open
open.
courtyards as well.
It's
So
completely
that's,
open.
again, like, I think that's what we're trying to, we don't want people to be able to come and go. So rooftop garden, there's only one way to get up or down off of
Well,
that.
in the rooftop garden, you have to get on the elevator, go to
Right.
the 4th floor. But I'm just thinking about things that I'm familiar with, and the space at Walnut Hills High School is completely open and does have access. I mean, so it's either all or none. I guess that's what I'm asking, the same as like with number 1.
I think part of our reasoning was that is the problem. It is all or none. And what we were trying to do is find a way to do the best thing in order to have this opportunity, as the chairman mentioned. And so I think confined contiguous space answers that, at least for this member of the policy
I'm gonna have to
committee.
Google that word.
Contiguous, like, yeah, it's connected to. It's gotta be connected to.
Then I think number 9.
Connected to?
Oh, no, wait.
What?
Yeah,
I'm
number
sorry.
9.
Connected
The
to?
building itself.
What
So
if
what
a
we're trying,
school campus has multiple buildings?
what's
It
that?
does,
Or
right.
multiple structures?
My perspective is quite different, and I guess everybody needs to get to a point of comfort, but I think sometime the request made to use certain facility would depend on the logistics of that particular facility. There's no perfect wording you could use to cover every
Every one of
aspect
our
of our building, and so we just need to get comfortable. And I like E's suggestion, and then address it as it comes up.
Well, see, I think we've been addressing it as it comes up
I
a
know.
little bit too
So it's-
much
it's
and
not
too
gonna be a
long.
perfect
And
policy.
so, and then, I just want to finish what our president has asked us to do. Number 9 talks about you can't advertise it in conjunction with any event. It's like when we started down this path, we talked about opening up our schools to community opportunities and for them to be attractive places for folks to use, as an extension of the community. And I'm just wondering, by putting these limitations in here, because we're just looking or grasping for something to put on paper, are we not honoring what we set as goals to make our schools as part of the community?
I would add to that, I think by having this policy, we're making it possible to open our facilities on a more structured and standard way so that people have knowledge as to what they can do and not do. I am uncomfortable necessarily seeing the CPS logo alongside come and have drinks. I think that's a problem, and I think that's the advertisement piece. I know that our public affairs department is very, very careful how we use our logo and who can say that it's CPS or use that kind
I
of
agree.
stuff. Because of the branding we try to have. So I think that's the discomfort. Those organizations may be able to tell people there's going to be wine or whatever, but in the advertisement of that event, we think it would be inappropriate to have our logo alongside of come and have drinks.
Yeah, I know of 2 events that happened in this past year. One was actually at Rothenberg at the rooftop garden. The other was at SCPA. And especially as we talk about moving our specific SCPA school forward and doing fundraising, it could sometimes be a hindrance not to be able to say, we're going to sell a raffle ticket, say you can buy a glass of wine. I mean, I just don't want to limit the opportunities such that it doesn't support or help the school. And thinking from a fundraising lens, which is what I do all day, every day, those things are important. It isn't that you're taking your brand or saying the school, because I want to be clear, in no way do I support, booze for all and mixed drinks and hard liquor and all that kind of thing. But, you know, just the opportunity to include as a part of your activity can sometimes make or break the amount of money you're able to raise at a particular event.
Yeah,
I mean,
Yeah,
it's just,
and
you know, it's
yeah.
food for thought, and I just don't know that we've been clear enough.
I hear you, and I think, again, we spent so many months discussing
understand.
this in our committee and like trying to find middle ground. So some folks who were fine with it being on there, some folks who said, absolutely not, we should not ever have CPS's, you know, name next to beer and wine. So trying to figure out what were the rationale for each of these, and how do we move forward? So yes, we want people to come into our buildings. We absolutely do. We do not want to limit, you know, an organization coming in, but at the same time, we have to also listen to our public affairs department. Also, our superintendent expressed concern about our logo being next to beer and wine will be sold there. And so we did take the expert advice from our senior administrators who said, this causes concern. So if you're going to continue to allow alcohol at events, we listen to their concern. So that's where all of these things were coming from, of how do we get as comprehensive as possible, and so that there's much more clarity, as Board Member Bolton was saying, much more clarity for folks applying to us around what our standards are.
I'd like to say that I do appreciate all the hard work that's gone into this. You
Most
clearly
certainly.
have delineated a lot of things right now, and as it stands where the conversation is going, I think my concerns on a couple of items, numbers 2 and 9 in particular, I don't feel comfortable moving forward with those. I mean, we've talked about some amendments which are unclear to me as well, so that's kind of my thoughts.
Can I
Ms.
suggest,
Bates?
go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I kind of agree, and I don't know why we're limiting the use of alcohol by outside organizations. What's an outside organization? And, you know, what if Cass wanted to have a party, would they be an outside organization?
Right.
I mean, they're just, by trying to limit, I think we've opened this up to ambiguity.
Mr. Nelms?
I was just going to add that I think we can take a look at this. It's not a rush, and if there are any suggestions, particularly from your point of view, we can maybe have that given to the chair, and then we can review it and take it back to our legal counsel to see if we are covered from those concerns.
Do that if
Yeah.
the board doesn't want to recognize the friendly amendment approach to doing it from the floor, which is okay with us. We would like at this time then to be know exactly what all else you have. We don't want to go back to open up any more discussion further or more research or what have you. We're done with this and came to the board to see the reaction, and we have a reaction on at least, I see maybe 4. Do I see 4 items perhaps that could be adjusted, or is it 3? Is it 4? And if we knew what that would be, then I know our chair will be able to steward us through and be able to bring this baby Ruth back.
Okay, so
What are they?
Already named them. She already gone through them 3 times.
Okay,
So,
I'm just,
no,
I
can
want
you
to,
just
Okay,
submit-
so I think, so just to be clear though, because I think we've done this before as a board, where we
Yes,
leave and we
thank
think
you.
we're on the same page, and then potentially we're not. So I want to recap our next steps. And to Board Member Bolton's point, we have been talking about this ad nauseum. I think we know what our board goals are, we state them on the website, and when we try to figure out what this falls into, this doesn't fall into anything that's one of our board goals. So I think to that end, we'd really like to get your final feedback here, put it back together again and get it back out in front of you, so that we can, in the policy committee, be focusing on stuff that's going to move our kids forward and not continuing to rehash this plan.
next
We would-
week.
Next week,
Next,
so.
next week we meet. So it looks like we need to rethink, and we'll talk with our legal counsel about outside organizations versus any organization. Adding the beer and wine to number 1, coming up with better wording for number 2 around inside a building or what we mean. I think to Board Member Nelm's point, we have so many buildings that it's likely going to be hard to encompass all of them. But maybe if we can task our legal team with talking with our facilities team about how many kind of special exceptions we have, like a school garden or something like that, that we could figure out that wording for. And then it sounds like there's some debate around number 9 about the advertisement, and whether or not we should include that. Again, like we said, we're following the lead of our administrators who made that recommendation. Are those the key pieces? Is there anything that we're missing?
You have 1, 2, 4, and 9. And which one did you call, Melanie?
Outside organization.
What number is that? I'm sorry.
H.
Yeah.
Letter H.
Oh, just the letter H.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Can
Okay.
you tell me with number 4, what's the issue there?
What are we talking about when we say outside organizations? What does,
No, I'm sorry, number 4.
I don't know the what.
oh, on number 4, I'm sorry.
Maybe that wasn't one of them.
Yeah, I didn't hear anything about that one.
No.
Okay, so we'll take these back.
Oh, well, number 4, it does make a question. I mean, you're saying you can only go in the cafeteria, gym, or the restroom. You can't use a classroom?
Right. We had a lot of feedback from our CFT president about when classrooms have been used. And so we think for these events, and you'll see we have a distinction in F versus H. So if it's a regular event, no alcohol is being used whatsoever.
Right.
You can still use a classroom, but the teacher has to be notified. That hasn't been happening across the board, and you can imagine as a teacher how not good that is to come into your classroom when it's been used. But we're saying if alcohol be served, then no,
Not in a classroom.
You cannot be
I
in a
got
classroom.
you. Oh, okay. I got
Yeah.
Just, this is kind of a legal question, but if you put a IE and then 3 items, is that exhaustive?
Right.
I don't know.
Okay.
Obviously, hallways is going to be included in the common areas, but like, again, the rooftop garden.
Right.
Okay. So we'll
I
look
just
at
think
that.
that's tied in with number
Okay.
3.
So then why don't we
or
have a
number
next
2.
step that we will meet with our legal counsel to work on the language here. We'll put it on our May 18th agenda and hopefully be able to come back at that meeting.
To the motion maker and seconder to table this.
Right.
Okay, do we need a vote to table something?
We don't have to vote on a table, do we?
I think we do, don't we?
I hope not, but okay. I move we table this.
I second.
We have a motion and a second to table the resolution. Roll call, please. Assume we don't need more
Bates?
discussion.
Ms. Bolton?
Aye.
Mrs. Copeland Dansby?
We're voting to table?
Yes.
Aye.
Mrs. Hoffman?
Aye.
Mr. Manera? Mr. Nelms? President Coons?
Aye. All right. Mr. Manera, will you please present the resolution for board consideration?
Yes, I have a resolution to enter into pledge agreement and memorandum of understanding with MedPace, and I present it as written.
Thank you, Mr. Manera. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Bates. I think this one deserves some discussion and comments. We've been working for a very long time on this MedPace agreement or memorandum. I wonder if perhaps, Ms. Dillon, you could kind of give an overview of the legal documents we have in front of us. Sorry, you're probably still taking notes from the last conversations. I know the Madisonville community has been very involved in this work, so if any community members are watching or in the audience tonight, we want to make sure we discuss for their benefit.
Thank you. We have the 2 parts tonight. We have the Memorandum of Understanding, which talks about activities that will be going on in the future with regards to MedPace and Parker School. And there are also some funds involved in that, donations to the school. The pledge agreement is something to evidence those funds and that those funds will be paid in the future. So that's the reason we did it in the 2 parts. Are there any specific questions? Because I know this has been talked about for quite a while.
Oh, yes, it has been. And I'll open it up to board members, but I did just, again, I was inviting you for the good of the public to know where we're at with this. But this is a follow-up to a resolution that was passed in December. And we're, I think, excited about finding a common ground on this. It's taken a lot of community input. This is something that I think we can kind of pat ourselves on the back and do one of those for. So just wanted to make sure we had a chance to do that.
Well, I think the important thing, one of the important things to mention is how hard we had to work to ensure the benefit to our students. at John P. Parker and at Schroeder. And there are several things that are listed in this resolution to enter into a pledge, you know, where we're talking about greenhouse and opportunities for students to learn in partnership with a major corporation in our city. That's worth noting, I think, as well as athletic opportunities for our students at both John P. Parker and Schroeder.
That's a great point.
Yeah, I would just echo what Board Member Dansby was saying, that we collectively, so not just the board, but lots of folks in the community, folks over at MedPace have just been working for months now to figure out how we can benefit the kids at Parker and at Schroeder. It's very much aligned with the My Tomorrow initiative, where we want to make sure our kids are college and career ready, and having an international company across the street from one of our schools and figuring out how do we have a transformational relationship with that company for our kids. It took a lot of work and a lot of patience, and so I think we're all really excited. You know, of course, the donation is exciting, and I think that might stand out to folks, but I think even just some of the stuff listed in here around active career-based learning exploration, you know, where our kids are going to be going to MedPace, and MedPace is, folks from MedPace are going to be coming into our schools. Really exciting opportunities for our kids. So we're just really, really excited that we were able to get to this place.
Great, thank you. And with that, I will call for the vote. Mr. Wagner.
Mrs. Bates?
Aye.
Ms. Bolton?
Aye.
Mrs. Copeland Dansby?
Aye.
Mrs. Hoffman?
Aye.
Mr. Manera?
Aye.
Mr. Nelms? President Coons?
Aye. Mrs. Copeland Dansby, as Chair of the Partnership and Public Engagement Committee, please present the resolution for board consideration.
Certainly, there is a resolution to present Michael Beck with the Cincinnati Board of Education's second annual Education Pinnacle Award. And I do present it as written, with noting that there was a presentation or event last week where there were 8 finalists who have done tremendous, amazing things for our public schools, and it was a very tough decision. The board unanimously chose Michael Beck, and just a little bit about him. He's launched computer clubs at Taft Information Technology High School and Hayes School in the West End. He has organized career exploration opportunities at Withrow University High School, and he's also implementing a Code for Kids initiative focused on building a pipeline of diverse information technology students to strengthen Cincinnati's economy and prepare our region for the jobs of tomorrow. And so I do present it as written.
Thank you, Vice President Dansby. Is there a second?
Second?
Thank you, Ms. Bates. Any further discussion or comments? I was able to attend the Pinnacle Awards ceremony last week along with board members Bolton, Bates, and Dansby, and it was pretty awesome. I know that Mr. Beck was floored when he found out that he won. But you wouldn't know it from his comments when he accepted the vase. They were very gracious and loquacious. So I definitely want to extend congrats to him. It was a magnificent event, so kudos to Public Affairs for putting it together. Our second annual, looking forward to many more annual Pinnacle Awards. And Mrs. Wagner, will you please call the roll?
Mrs. Bates? Ms. Bolton?
Aye.
Mrs. Copeland Dansby?
Aye.
Mrs. Hoffman?
Aye.
Mr. Manera?
Aye.
Mr. Nelms?
I guess aye.
President Coons?
Aye. And finally, the last resolution tonight, I'm going to introduce as a teacher myself. I thought it would only appropriate that we recognize the teachers of our district. So I'm presenting a resolution in recognition of teacher appreciation for Cincinnati Public Schools teachers. Whereas May 4th through 8th, 2015 was Teacher Appreciation Week, and Tuesday, May 5th was Teacher Appreciation Day, and whereas our country's future depends on providing quality education to all students, and whereas education and knowledge lay the foundation for the future of our children, and whereas teachers play a crucial role in building a foundation for success that follows students well beyond the classroom, and whereas teachers fill many roles as listeners, explorers, role models, motivators, and mentors, and whereas teachers mold future citizens through guidance and education, and whereas teachers spend countless hours preparing lessons, evaluating progress, counseling and coaching students, and performing community service, and whereas teachers are among the most committed and dedicated public servants for student education, And whereas our community recognizes and supports its teachers in educating the children of this community, now therefore be it resolved that the Cincinnati Board of Education proclaims the month of May 2015 Teacher Appreciation Month, and be it finally resolved that the Cincinnati Board of Education strongly encourages all members of our community to join with it, personally expressing appreciation to our teachers for their dedication and devotion to their work. I present this on behalf of the entire board. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Bolton. Any further comments or discussion? Mrs. Wagner, will you please call the roll?
Mrs. Bates?
Aye.
Ms. Bolton?
Aye.
Mrs. Copeland Dansby?
Aye.
Mrs. Hoffman?
Aye.
Mr. Manera?
Aye.
Mr. Nelms?
Aye.
President Coons?
Aye. Superintendent Ronan, do you have a report?
Yes, President Coons, I actually have two items. I believe this morning you joined me at Parker Woods Montessori for the dedication of the community teaching garden in conjunction with the American Heart Association, and there were numerous volunteers who had done the plantings, and the children were going out to actually dig into the ground and get dirty with our permission. So it was a lovely event, and it was also dedicated to a former teacher at Parker Woods who had passed away. Then the second event, President Coons and I also attended with Mr. Manera, and that was the Roberts Academy dedicating their front yard stormwater area. And what that is, the front plaza in front of the school that's all concrete and all the rains had been flooding. So working with MSD, they actually did plantings and created a bioswale to absorb the rainwater so it doesn't collect on all the concrete in front of the building. So it was a lovely event attended by city council members, MSD folks, several board members, and was a very nice occasion, except it was incredibly warm on that concrete.
It was, and that's why you're wearing green today, a couple of green events.
That's right, we had green events, and I do have pictures of that, which I will pass around because that was quite nice.
It is
And that
fantastic.
concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Ronan. Do I have a motion to approve the recommendations of the superintendent?
So move.
Thank you, Ms. Bolton. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Mrs. Wagner, please call the roll.
Mrs. Bates?
Aye.
Ms. Bolton?
Aye.
Mrs. Copeland Dansby?
Aye.
Mrs. Hoffman? Mr. Manera? Mr. Nelms?
Aye.
President Coons?
Aye. Do I have a motion to approve the revised report of the treasurer?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Bates. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Bolton. Any discussion?
Yes, I have a couple things.
Vice President Dansby?
In item number 3 and item number 4, it's not really a question. It is just to point out the magnificent opportunities that our students are having this summer for an AP Blended Learning Humanities Boot Camp being held on the campus of Miami University from June 22nd through June 26th. And then the other opportunity is with Khajiit Incorporated, where our students are going to be able to have wireless devices to create their hotspots in order to do flipped classes and new online AP courses. I think those are two exceptional opportunities for our students, and I wanted the public to be aware of them. And then on page 4, it looks like we have some MacBooks going to Covedale and some MacBooks going, iPad Airs going to the kids at South Avondale, students at South Avondale. So those are excellent opportunities, and I'm glad to support those and see that our students are being equipped with innovation and technology needed in order to increase their learning. Woohoo. Woohoo. I wrote the word yay.
Any further discussion or comments? Mrs. Wagner, will you please call the roll?
Mrs. Bates?
Aye.
Ms. Bolton?
Aye.
Mrs. Copeland Dansby?
Aye.
Mrs. Hoffman? Mr. Manera? Mr. Nelms?
Aye.
President Coons?
Aye. For inquiries and updates this evening, we have one that we are noticed. There may be more, knowing this board. Probably plenty. At least you got 5 of them. Just kidding. No, I know, I'm teasing you. Mr. Nelms, board protocol.
Yeah, I just wanted to just keep this on the forefront until we have an opportunity to discuss it extensively. So just wanted to make sure everyone had a copy and you can revisit it at your own convenience and leisure. And that's all I would have to add.
Okay. And Mr. Nelms, are you referring to the memo you sent home with us in that protocol?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. Mrs. Hoffman.
As the board knows, we were able to get some research around best practices in superintendent evaluation so that we could revamp our superintendent's evaluation to be just a better tool for all of us, for all of us to figure out how can we use this not just as a checkbox of something we have to do legally, but actually help us make sure that we're all on the same page and to move the district forward. I asked those same folks if they could do some research for us around based on the board's input around legal counsel's evaluation to help us align what our legal counsel actually does with how we evaluate her. And I did get all of that research, and so just wanted to follow up with the board, since it's something you had asked to look into, to let you know that I have that now, and see how we would like to move forward with it, if it's similar to how we did the superintendent's evaluation, or if we want to see if our board fellow could take that on, if we want to assign it to a certain committee, or what we wanted the next steps there to be, so we can make that a more robust, aligned evaluation.
So I think that's a very important item, and I know that it's timely because it relates to evaluations, which full end-of-year evaluations are coming up due in the next month. So I'm wondering if we can't try to tackle this in our board retreat this Thursday, if we extended the time. We gotta do it.
Well,
Yeah, I think we just want to,
yeah,
Go ahead.
I was going to say if our board fellow could do some background work for us than just coming to discuss another evaluation. Since we already have a model with the superintendent's evaluation, I don't think we need a full board discussion around another evaluation.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that works great. I really like that, that solution. I just want to make ourselves remain cautious that our board fellow is charged with so much related to our quality seats / in-demand seats / great learning choices conversation. And so you got to have some humor sometime, right? So, I think that would be great, though. Like, I'm not thinking that we need to spend a whole great deal of time, but we have to just be careful how much we assign.
I'm happy to approach him and ask him if he's reached his 10 hours a week or not.
Okay.
And do that. I just didn't want to do anything without the board's direction.
But it is very timely.
Okay, so to be clear, my next step is I should reach out to Joe to see if he has time to also look at this for us. Is that?
Yeah, based on the model set with the
For the
superintendent,
superintendents,
so he
and then
doesn't have to reinvent the wheel.
Yep, and then all this, yep.
And I think I had a break in concentration, so I apologize. We're talking in terms of the general counsel's evaluation. I know that through finance, we're kind of modeling ourselves after student achievement regarding the superintendent efforts and pathways. So I know in finance, we're working with our treasurer and ultimately the HR folks as well to move ahead on the treasurer's new evaluation process too. So I think if we can have that okay, I think it would be great to do what you're suggesting for general counsel.
Can I ask a question? Is that treasurer evaluation going to be in line with how we have the new tool for the superintendent's evaluation? Is that what you're saying?
I think to the degree that it can.
Okay.
As we found, and I think you were one of the first to point it out, with the previous treasurer, some of the material and some of the way of measuring the treasurer does not work if you're putting alongside the standard of what we're asking the superintendent to do. So I know that there's been research regarding both the private sector, both from the CFO position, as well as a school district treasurer. And remember too that our current treasurer had her first 6 months in a different position. So we have this kind of interim half of the second 6 months, but we are working diligently to move us into where at the end of this school year, there will be another tool that will be useful to her, and I think finance can put that together.
So finance is going to develop the tool that we're going to use?
And hopefully with much help. But right now, she's in that interim period of first 6 months with the superintendent when she was CIO, and now we have the CFO piece. And ultimately, when she starts her first full year in the evaluation process, it'll be with a new treasurer evaluation.
So you're saying the new evaluation wouldn't be implemented until the following, like the
It'll be
15,
her
16?
first full year, yes. It'll
Okay.
be her first full year as treasurer
That makes
versus
sense.
what she has had now, which is the first 6 months in a different position. And now the measurement that we're using, I think finance will recall, is the goals, or the standard measurement we're using now are the goals and, the goals and vision that she presented when she took this position. And it's that, we're
Okay.
using that standard.
Well, that's what I was trying to drill
You
down,
got
to be
it.
clear, what was presented is what we'll evaluate on.
Darn
And then
straight.
the next cycle around, we'll have a new tool. Okay.
Bingo.
I just want to know what work I have to do.
That buys us some time,
All right.
especially if we were counting on our intern to help with
Yes.
that. So he can just focus on general counsel. Fantastic. I'm gonna make an assignment, or maybe this is an update, I'm sorry, it's late. But I think that a point that Mr. Nelms has made over and over and over again, which I do want to respect, is that the board needs to take some time to do some self-evaluation. And I'd like for us to look at our calendars and possibly schedule a retreat in the near future. Our retreat on Thursday has a full agenda, and our next retreat wouldn't be until August. And I think it might be helpful to tackle this prior to that. I know that Board Member Bates is traveling a fair amount in the summer. In June.
I'm not here pretty much in July.
Okay, so does Thursday, May 28th work for people?
Ooh.
Oh, yeah, sorry, no.
Last day of school?
It's a party day.
And also, I know this is around graduation time, so flag me if you're at a graduation then. Tuesday, May 26th. And our typical retreat time is 4:30,
No.
so.
Yeah.
This particular retreat,
This is hopefully bringing someone to facilitate, probably from OSBA or one of our associations, to perhaps review the protocol, as you mentioned, and then also.
and when I presented it, I didn't have it in mind to do it that often, that soon, but if it doesn't fit everybody's schedule, we can do it right before school starts.
So the August date might work then, you're thinking? Okay, I just, out of respect,
Yeah, it's
the
not
fact
a
that you
sense,
keep,
it's not a sense of urgency, but it's something we need to do. So, but it can wait.
I would second that if, right now, the focus has to be on the budget.
Right.
And that'll take us through June, and then if some folks are gone in July, then the earliest possible time in August would be good. But again, it certainly doesn't do any harm for all of us individually to read the protocol and also, be thinking about the things that we may need to change or what have you.
so just as a reminder then, our August retreat date, Phyllis.
Before school. You can come up with a date and just get back with us.
Well, we already have one scheduled, that's why I just wanted to make sure 17th. Okay,
Can I also just, I think we've talked about this before as well, when Board Member Nelms brought up the need for self-evaluation, is for us to be thinking about too, we have board goals at our public board goals, but at this point, thinking about what are our measurable goals. So as we launch into the new school year, what are the measurable goals that, as a board, we want to say at the end of next school year, we're going to have reached XYZ measurable goal. And so maybe coming into that meeting, we have that on the table.
okay.
Agreed.
All right.
Second.
Comment on that? I'll just ask that, is there a separate thing you wanted to get to?
Separate
Okay,
thing.
I'll just ask that Ms. Davis, if you make sure you just send an email reminder about that August date.
What is the
And,
date?
She said the 17th, but I thought it was a Thursday, so that's why I'm,
Board retreat is August 27th.
27th.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I have in
Okay.
my calendar.
27th at 4-ish PM. So, and we'll have a facilitator for that retreat as well. Thank you. Ms. Bolton?
It's been brought to my attention that perhaps a good thing to do with the resolution regarding teachers and our faith in them and our commending them might not be a bad idea to find a way for the superintendent on our behalf to send that resolution out to our to our staff.
We will send it out tomorrow.
That'd be great. And I did neglect to do one kudo, and I promised myself I'd do it. I had the great pleasure of attending the open house at Parker Woods Montessori. where they not only had a little festival at the end, but they had, I think, most of their staff in classroom welcoming any community members that were interested in seeing the school and knowing more about that school. It was fabulous, and I hope that all of our schools do that.
Nice.
Just to Member Dansby's position about opening our communities, we need to do more of that in that kind of formal way with our staff and the children there. It was just very impressive.
I know that I'll say for myself, and I assume it's true for most board members, we just can't spend enough time in our schools, and every time we're back there, we're reminded of how proud we are. Having no other business come before the board, I declare the meeting adjourned.